Hello, hello. Thanks so much for joining us today. We have a very special workshop planned for you today, all about how to use NITRO Copilot. There's so much discussion about copilots, and we have a unique offering with NITRO Copilot where you can utilize that for your organization in conjunction with business process automation. So lots of fun things there. I'm joined today by James Restivo, our resident NITRO Guru and VP of VP of Operations. And we have a lot of interesting things to dive into. But before we do that, just a couple of housekeeping items. So first of all, feel free to use that question box. We have it on the right side of your screen there. We would love to hear from you. So don't be shy. Type in your questions there. And we'll be keeping it a little bit more high level today. The interesting thing about copilots are there are so many different use cases. So we'd certainly encourage you to reach out to us and we can really look at what might make the most sense for your organization in particular if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty after the fact, one-on-one. And lastly, this call will be recorded. So we'll be uploading this to our YouTube channel as well as to our website. So now without any further ado, I'd like to go ahead and hand things over to James.
Thank you, Krista. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'll be, we'll keep I'll switch over to my screen in just a moment here. So let's keep your panel up for a little bit and then I'll switch over. But I wanted to kind of give a background a little bit to what the NITRO Copilot's all about, sort of why we developed it, and maybe give probably a little crash course in copilots, because I think everyone is fairly aware of what Microsoft is rolling out with Copilot. So people are fairly aware with ChatGPT, but just to kind of level set and make sure everyone's on the same page, just want to go through a brief introduction of where we're coming from with this Copilot. So, obviously AI has been the big topic conversation going on, close to 2 years now with ChatGPT coming out. Now everyone's incorporating it into their applications as much as possible, and I think it's showing a lot of value. I know Microsoft has put it in almost everything that they're offering, almost every product they have. But there's kind of different levels of AI and copilots that you can run. And so what Microsoft is doing is they have kind of like 3 different levels of what they're offering with their Copilot. There's the Microsoft Copilot where you can go and get the license. I think it's like $20 per user, $30 per user per month. So it is a little bit spendy, but it is something that would then incorporate a Copilot into PowerPoint, Excel, Word, all the different places you might want to use it. A lot of people call it like the new version of Clippy, but it's probably a lot better than Clippy ever was. That's kind of the one level of Copilot, right? So there's the overarching Microsoft Copilot, bunch of money a month. That is basically for everyone to use. It's going to be able to access documents and data that you have access to through the Graph API. So there are some data governance concerns with that. You want to make sure your organization is really up to speed with data governance and who has access to what resources, because the Microsoft Copilot at that level will give anyone access to everything that they have access to. So there could be a hidden list somewhere that you forgot to block access to or whatever. You do have to be cognizant of that. And we've actually used it internally in some cases for looking things up and like, oh, where's that document? I didn't know that still existed. It's just like, oh, okay, yeah, get rid of it. But then, that's the broad Copilot that you might hear a lot about. Then if you want to dig down another level into Microsoft's Copilot story, there is the the Copilot Studio. Right, so there's a Copilot Studio, which is the new version of Power Virtual Agents, and that's basically your chatbot, your custom, to some degree, custom bot that you can use to reference data. Now, again, it gives the person access to everything that they already have access to, whether they're supposed to have it or not. And you can build in some workflows behind it and do some things with it, but you're kind of limited to a degree with what's available in the Power Platform, with Power Automate behind it. There's a limitation to the number of documents you can potentially point it to target your information. So it does give you a lot of flexibility, but then it doesn't give you a great level of flexibility, right? So what we've done, and what the next level down is, and kind of going down the hole to more and more coding, I guess you could say. There's the next level down, which is Azure AI Studio. So there's Azure OpenAI Studio, which is the developers area where you can develop things that are more customized for individual organizations or more customized for ISVs like ourselves to sell. And that's what we've done with our NITRO Copilot. So we've used that Azure AI piece of it and developed this Copilot on top of it. Now, one of the advantages is that it will limit what a person has access to or sees when they get a response from that Copilot. And you have a lot of control over that. And that's what's called a retrieval augmented generation model, where you're a RAG model Copilot. So you're basically pointing it to a source of data, and that's your source of where the information is coming from. So it's not going out and getting all the data across your organization using the graph. It's you have more control over it. It's more of a curated list. So I just want to kind of set that stage, because I know the word Copilot is thrown out there all over the place. Microsoft uses it in different scenarios. We're using it for our NITRO Copilot, but it is essentially those three different levels that we talked about. The overarching Copilot across all the different apps, the Copilot Studio, where you can build your own chatbot but using the Power Platform, and then there's the Azure OpenAI Studio, where we built our NITRO Copilot and did a little more with it. So I'll go ahead, kind of given that background, I think is helpful for you folks. And if any questions on that or anything like that, certainly use the questions box. But I'm going to go ahead and make myself presenter. And I'm going to share my screen over here. There it is. Okay. Now, let me just make sure everyone can see my screen. Krista, you can see it?
Yes, we sure can.
All right, perfect. Okay. So this is an iteration of the NITRO Copilot that we have in there in it's in NITRO Studio, and this gives you an indication of what it can do. So this is a web power on page, but you have some control over what goes in here, and I'll go through those settings when we get into it a little bit further down the line. But I wanted to kind of again give you some ideas of what's going on behind the scenes here. There are some things that you would need to set up to use a Copilot like this in a way that makes sense. So to support this Copilot, there's an LLM behind it, right? So there's Azure OpenAI, which is the ChatGPT style LLM. But there could also be something like Claude 3 Sonnet. So that even goes outside of the Microsoft ecosystem to use an LLM of your choosing. Now, whatever LLM you use to process the data, and I assume everyone knows what an LLM is. It's large language model. I think it's been being, if you're in the tech space, I think it's been beaten in our heads for the past year and a half or so what these things are. So I just assume there's some knowledge there, but if I use any terms or anything that you're not familiar with, certainly pop it in the questions box and I'll be happy to answer it. Anyway, so you have an LLM, a large language model that you can choose which one you want to use. So there's Azure OpenAI, there's OpenAI directly for the GPT 4.0. There's Llama, there's Bard, there's Claude 3 from Anthropic. There's a ton of different ones out there, and I think a new one is coming out every day, more or less. But the idea is that you can choose which LLM you want to use. Now, each one has a different cost associated with it, so you'd have to be cognizant of that and understand what you want to use. But they also provide different capabilities. Some of them are better than others. We've been looking at Claude 3 Sonnet quite a bit, and it is pretty powerful. It's pretty amazing. Not to say Azure OpenAI couldn't get there or be there, but it is some are a little further along than others. So that's the first part of this, is that there's an LLM sitting behind this where we're basically taking the prompt and running it through that LLM to generate the response. Now, the piece that is important here is that we're pointing it to a particular set of documents. As I mentioned earlier, we can control what documents and curate which documents are the source of this, the data that gets returned here and the information. So what we've done here is we have a document library which has a bunch of HR related policies. And you can see we've created some pre-prompts here for, was a harassment policy, what are the paid holidays, et cetera, et cetera. and it's going to go and look at that data first and then produce the response. So it works pretty well. I was using it a little bit earlier today. It comes back pretty quickly with a response. It does take a moment to generate because it does have to go through kind of the different channels to get the answer. But essentially, what it's doing now is it's going to take this question I just asked it and run it through the set of data that we have in the background here, which is a document library with HR documents. And then if it can't find certain information, it might pull some information from the web, whatever's available to that LLM at that time. But you can see here it came back with a pretty comprehensive response of what our harassment policy is. And you can also see there's some information down here as far as what it's linking to. You can see where that information came from for that LLM, for that response. Now, the nice thing about it is that you can clear the chat, do a new one, end the chat. You can also do some other actions. I'll show you that when we go through the Copilot settings. But you can clear that chat, start a new one. What's the policy for devices? This is going to again go and run through the model and bring back some information. So it's all very cool. It'll take a minute to do that, but it'll come back with a pretty good response. So I mentioned at the beginning, there's an LLM that we're pointing this to. So we have a subscription with a particular LLM to run this process. But then there's some other tools we have set up in the background as well, and that's something we can certainly work with you or help get you going with. Is Azure AI Search, for instance. We think that's a better tool than SP Search, SharePoint Search. SharePoint Search can be kind of limited, and if we use Azure Search, we can actually go out and use multiple document libraries. But just give you a sense of what's going on behind the scenes here, because that's probably what you guys are here for, more than just like seeing something that you've seen on ChatGPT a ton of times. So what's going on behind the scenes here is that we have in our NITRO configurations, we have these AI connection settings. So we have an Azure OpenAI account that we're using in the background to process the document intelligence action, which I'll show you that in a minute. There's some Azure OpenAI Search. I think there's some duplication here in these settings. So I think you only need one of these OpenAI things. But then there's the Azure Search, which again, that's another Azure service that is in the Azure OpenAI Studio. That's going to be, I would recommend that actually for this Copilot, regardless of whether you're using the Azure OpenAI as an LLM or if you're using Claude 3 or some other LLM. Because again, the Azure AI Search, as I was chatting with my team a little bit earlier today, is going to give you much more robust responses than just running it through in the SharePoint search. So you're going to get better options. And then there's this document intelligence action where you can point it to this document intelligence AI, and this is actually where you can expand the source content for this RAG model Copilot from just one document library to multiple document libraries. So you could have a set of HR policies, but maybe you want to augment that with a set of data that's living in a document library somewhere else. Maybe you want to expand the use case of it to beyond just HR policies is our example, but you might want to have a multi-use Copilot that has, again, specific sources of data that isn't just the broad shot of data that you have across your enterprise. You may just want to target it to 2 or 3 or 4 document libraries that have specific data that you can curate and control what that data is. So it doesn't get stale, it doesn't get old. You can control who has access to it. You can control that information in that source. But the way this works is that you have a workflow, a NITRO workflow that's running behind this that uses this information to get process the data, process the content that's in that document library. So to show you a couple of the workflows we have, and they're really simple workflows, right? So there's this extract text workflow. It really actually you only need 2 workflows, one for when the document gets added to the document library and one for if it is updated, right? So you have the same document, you have to update it with new information, you've changed out your policies, you changed out something, you need to update that document. So we do have an action here. It's a document intelligence action in the NITRO workflow tool. And when we open this up, you can see that it's pointing to that Azure, CCS Azure Doc Intel, which is our AI connection that we have over in our Azure environment. And you can control some things about it as far as whether you want to split the document, what the chunk size should be, and this can be based on your subscription level. And so you do want to be cautious of what chunk size to use, and how much overlap there should be. I don't know if these are the settings we have in place. I'll have to get some notes and details to understand what settings would make sense. But again, we're happy to work with you to help get the Azure piece set up, specifically because that might be one area we have done before that you may not have. So we're happy to help you with that. And then there's some information about the embeddings, AI search. So there's certain things we got put in place here. But once you have all your connections and things set up, you can just select, add your documents to the document library, and it's going to process them and make them consumable for the Copilot. And then you can see we have another action over here to do it. This one is for when an item is created, and then this other one is for when an item is added. So a couple different workflows that we have going on behind the scenes there to make sure that the data is good. And you can see, again, just to point out that there is this AI connection. We can create a similar workflow on multiple document libraries, and I'll point them to that AI connection. And that AI connection is embedded in the Copilot settings. So let me jump over to like behind the scenes of that Copilot web part that's on the page. And we're working on this HR policies one, so I'll just pull that one up. And you can see you got the data source over here. Ignore this at the top. That's really there for SP search. We'll clean that up. But you can see right here, this is what we're pointing it to. We're pointing it to this document intelligence AI connection, which would be your specific connection for your your environment, right? So your Azure environment would have its own particular document intelligence AI connection. And then again, you could point as many workflows using that document intelligence action to as many document libraries as you want, and that's going to be the primary source of information for that Copilot. But just kind of give you a walkthrough of some of the other things you can do here. That's the behind the scenes setup piece of it, again, which we're happy to help you with, because I don't expect you all to retain all that information and have it at the tip of your fingertips. But just give you some other insight to what's happening here around this Copilot. So we're giving you some UI elements to make it easy to use. And you can see here's that hello, whoever is signed in, how can I help you? That's all controllable, and you can change you can change what this looks like, right? You can change, it's all rich text, so you can make it look however you want it to look. So if I go to new chat, you can see that's where it's coming from right here. Then you have your AI settings, which again, we get those all set up. We'll just go boom, 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 connect them over, and you're good to go. You got your data source and number of documents to pick, so you can control how many documents you want it to pick. So it could be 3, it could be 5, it could be 20. It really, it's going to search the documents and pick the 3 that match the text of the prompt the most, right? So you're not limiting it to just randomly picking the top 3 documents or the 3 or whatever 3 documents it chooses. You're basically just saying, pick the top 3 documents that match this prompt, and then that's what you're going to use to generate your response to the user, to the end user. So 3 is probably a good number. You certainly could have more, but again, you might start to introduce some latency issues if you do too many documents, right? So you want to make sure that your scope of documents is, 3 is probably sufficient. And you see we also have a log list here, which would capture the conversations that are going on with this Copilot. So you can actually log what is being communicated. So you can do that. I don't know if you can do that with, you probably can do that. You might be able to do that with Copilot Studio. I'm not 100% sure. I know with the Microsoft Copilot, maybe there's some log or auditing list in the background that you can review, but this will give you a very clear, definitive place to store the conversation conversations that are occurring with this Copilot. You can see you can give the Copilot some prompts. So these are essentially prompting that Copilot to say this is a HR assistant. Now, if you wanted to do a different type of Copilot, obviously you would give it some other kind of prompt. We could tell it to rephrase the question, which again helps to modify and refine the responses that are going out. And then you can extract the keywords, which will help to, again, target that response. And that's where it's picking those top 3 documents that match the keywords the most. And then the pre-canned prompt height and pre-canned prompt width, that's what these things are. These boxes right here, those are the pre-canned prompts that you can set down here. And it's basically just going to take the text of whatever you put in here, put it into the Copilot chat, and it's going to respond accordingly. You can have some actions that occur, like this one we have a send to HR action, which is a way to create a ticket. So it kind of connects. This is where you connect up your business process to the Copilot. So it's not just the Copilot that's giving answers. Now you have something that happens when the user chooses to have it happen, I guess. You can have it create a ticket, you can have it send an email. So that takes it to the next level of like, hey, I've had this communication. I didn't get the answer I was looking for. I want to send this ticket to HR. Maybe they can get a better response, or maybe the person isn't prompting the Copilot very well. And the prompting piece of it is really the key for these Copilots, wherever you're using them, whether you're using ChatGPT or anything outside of Microsoft. The prompt piece of it is a really big part of it. I'm sure most of you are aware. So what you tell it to do is really the more you refine that and the more you have that locked down or specific, the better that response will be. Unless you want a generic response, then you can ask a generic question. Then we have some theming around it, so it gives you just some UI of the background, and if it's in Teams, what's the background color going to look like. So there's some settings there for that, but you can create new actions here and really expand out on it and create different things. So again, we can set a particular value. We can so I have to play around with that. I have to select a list here first. So it's writing over to the tickets list or request list actually, and I can have it map information from the conversation into that ticket, right? So if in description, so AI result is going to be the conversation. What the person was searching for could be you just wanted to get that, not what the AI responded with. You could fill out who the logged in user is into certain places, and then you could do like fixed values as well into particular fields. So you can create an item, and then that could then feed into another business process where you're creating the item, and then someone else gets a notification, takes action on it, et cetera, it goes from there. So that's one of the use cases we have here for the Copilot. Of course, like if you're using an IT environment, which I think a lot of the people on this call might be experiencing, you can have your users search a knowledge base that you curate, and you determine what documents that person should have access to be able to get the answer that they need. So you can control that content. That's kind of the overarching demo of what this Copilot can do, and a little bit of ideas on how to set it up. I really wanted to open up to the group here, though. If anyone has any specific AI use cases that they're looking to accomplish, I'd be happy to unmute you and have a conversation about that. We can just see what just see what we can do. So Josh, why don't you go ahead? I'll unmute you. You can ask the question. I think you have to unmute yourself as well. Oh, wait, hold on. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right, hold on. There we go.
Hello.
Josh.
Hey.
Yeah,
I was wondering if it was possible to like use a offline, like if we spin up like a Llama 3 LLM like on our own server, is it possible to like plug that into it?
Yeah, it will be. That is on the roadmap to support really any LLM that you choose, because we don't want you to be limited by the particular LLM offered by Microsoft, because there are some feedback out there that's maybe not the best. There are others, but others have different purposes, right? There's just maybe different focuses on what those developers focus on is different than what Microsoft or OpenAI developers focused on. So yeah, certainly like a Llama 3 or a Claude 3 or a Bard or whatever, something like that. We're going to be adding that kind of support down the line for those things.
Nice. And other quick question: would you be able to show how the AI search looks, how that works?
And the Azure component piece of it, the
Or
Azure AI
you
search.
mentioned how you prefer it to the SharePoint search, I think you said.
Yeah, like for a comparison purpose. So this is set up with Azure AI search. I don't have a Copilot set up with the SP search, so I can't really show those differences. And then on the, if you're looking to how is that set up on the Azure side of things, that's something we can take a look at. I can fish around in our Azure environment, but better to get someone who knows what they're doing, one of our developers on the call to walk through that with you. Okay.
Alrighty, I appreciate it.
Sure. Anyone else have any specific AI use cases they want to bring to the table? See if we can, like, what were you looking to accomplish with AI? Maybe we can see if this Copilot is your best bet, or we've been doing a lot of deep dive into AI, so we know a lot about, maybe not as much as some people, but we do know a lot about what's going on out there. So if your use case may not be handled by this, I mean, there are other tools, so we're certainly open to having those conversations as well. Also, just to see how how people, business users in general want to use this AI tool.
How about like for like categorization? If is a lot of our users will just pick other for everything. So like you get categorizing tickets based on the semantic content.
Absolutely, yeah. So that is something we are rolling into a new, into our NITRO help desk at some point, a newer version, or where we're going to have that type of intelligence in there to understand based on what was submitted, what is the appropriate categorization for this ticket. And not only that, we're looking at having auto-generated responses by AI so that you don't have to fish around for a particular template or write up a response. It should come from the AI. And I think I would imagine we're going to have some way for someone to review that before it automatically goes out. But maybe not. Maybe if you trust the AI or users know it could be it could be hallucination there. I mean, AI does still hallucinate, so there's still that possibility. But those are the types of things we're talking about adding into our help desk component, is to auto categorize and also have some auto responses. All right, if anyone else wants to raise their hand, I can unmute and talk about what you're looking to accomplish. And if no one else has anything, that's okay too.
Well, James, this is
Yes.
Scott, not a, just wanted to mention about did you mention about managing the documents in the library, how you access control and revision control and that kind of stuff? Because you don't want people
Yes.
put in any odd inappropriate document in there inadvertently or intentionally, whatever way, that then would be used by the AI. So there has to be some level of document management, right? We want to talk about that a minute.
Yeah, I can talk about that for a little bit. And that's part of one of the benefits of using this RAG model AI versus like the Copilot Studio or the Copilot, general Microsoft Copilot is really the targeting of what information that Copilot should use to present the answer to the user. So for the document management as a whole, SharePoint's really good at it essentially. But you can have that access control where we're pointing this to one or potentially multiple document libraries. You're controlling that source. You're the one going in, setting up that connection through NITRO workflows. You're the one determining what document libraries the Copilot should access. So you have that control over what is available for that Copilot to use. And now around that, of course, you can have a whole document management process where any new document would have to go through maybe have a staging area of like a revisions list or a draft list, which isn't used by the Copilot. And then there'd have to be a proactive approval by one or more people to add that document to the document library that the Copilot is using. So there are various ways and certainly various possibilities for how you control access to that document library. But based in, one of the assumptions being made here, just to point out, is that the person using the Copilot, again, this is on a SharePoint page, which can be, hidden or shown to only particular users. So you do have control over the permissions here, but essentially we're assuming anyone who has access to this page that we're seeing on the screen right here would have access to all of the documents in the document library or libraries that this is pointing to. So this is something to keep in mind, is that you want to make sure your your documents that you have there are things that people should see, or things that those users using that Copilot should see, right? To Scott's point, if you don't want to have a random document that's unrelated to HR policies in your HR document repository. So you want to have some control around that, and that could be just someone checking it. That could be a whole approval process. That could be maybe a whole revision or a management process where you're saying every document has to come up for review every 6 months or something like that. But you control that. That's completely within your control for this Copilot. So that's where we're giving you a lot of that possibility to curate that information and make sure it is relevant for your users.
Right, as opposed to the M365 Copilot goes to anything that you as a user have access to inside the M365 environment, whether it's messages, Teams channels, documents, and without a really efficient data governance situation in M365 that really controls it, when you use that kind of open data set of M365, you really run some risk as far as what kind of confidential, sensitive, or inappropriate data could be exposed. But with the NITRO Copilot, since it's a very targeted data set, as James was explaining, that you specifically put documents in this specific location that's controlled very tightly by access control and permissions and everything else, it's very clear what data is being exposed, and the risk of any kind of inappropriate or sensitive data is much more diminished. And of course, if you run M365, you should have a very efficient data governance policy in place. But things that could, we were finding stuff when we first doing this that from 2018, it's like, why do we still have that up on our, document library? In a SharePoint, someplace in SharePoint we had it without being specifically where, but we didn't realize it was still available, and with information that was not inappropriate, just way outdated, 6 years ago. So it really helped us clean up. But I imagine in a large organization that has a large amount of libraries, Teams channels, all kinds of stuff, groups, teams, and whatever, and messages, there could be all kinds of stuff exposed that is, you don't know, it's going to, AI is going to find it. It's like you have a closet full of stuff. AI is going to find that thing at the bottom, in the back drawer of your dresser, or in the closet, the shelf hidden in the garage or something. Yeah, it's going to find it. That's the thing about the AI. It's very powerful, and it will find these things. So that's why we're favoring towards the targeted data sets for the for the sense, for the ability to control what data is exposed to your end users. Right, James?
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. It's a targeted model. I did want to address, it looks like there's another question came in. Can we create a ticket if it's unable to resolve the user's issue and have it ask the user for specific info? So that's a great question, because I think that I'll take the first part, and there was a second part of that question that I'll get to in just a moment. But the initial part of it is we do have this send to HR, or it could be sent to IT or whatever, or create a ticket. It could say whatever you want it to say, but it's going to create an item in that tickets list or that request list, depending on where you want to send it. So we'll create that ticket. But another thing we could do, and maybe this is something we need to talk to the developers about, just kind of thinking, kind of brainstorming off the top of my head here, have that action actually prompt the Copilot to say, I want to submit a ticket. What other information do you need? And then have it go through and ask questions to say, oh, okay, what, where are you located? Are you having a problem with a particular device? Whatever it is, you could actually tell the Copilot to ask you questions. And this is something I've seen in some of the prompt engineering, videos I've been watching. Essentially, is like, you can tell the Copilot, ask me questions. Like, I want to do this. Ask me questions that are going to help refine the answer. And that, in a similar vein, I think we could have it do something like what you're saying, where you want to create a ticket, and it's going to maybe, could have some pre-canned things that it knows that it should be asking, and that can be embedded in those in some of these areas here. Like if you maybe even have a secondary prompt area where you're essentially saying, if this action is taken over here, like if this send to HR action is taken, now prompt the Copilot to say, ask questions about it, or ask about these specific pieces of information to create that ticket, and then go and create it. So that could be something. I think you could get most of the way there with what we have today, but I think there's maybe a few things we might need to add in to take that extra step to really get it there. But good question.
No, that's exactly right, James, is that we're incorporating the AI into our NITRO Engage bot at some point, and also in the way of doing copilots is what they call iterative prompting, meaning one prompt leads to another prompt. It isn't just like one prompt, but there's iterative prompting. And the other thing that is up there is conversational orchestration. So it's kind of like combining the bot technology with the AI technology, and we already have the NITRO Engage bot. It works really well. We're looking to incorporate the AI capabilities into it so that when it asks the question, it's kind of like a iterative thing going on. It asks this, it gets that, it's this, it's that, it's this, that, and then eventually you're able to say something like a leave request. I want to take a vacation. And the bot says, okay, when do you want to go? I want to go July something to something. Okay, blah, 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 like back and forth. And so that it's going places. We're early in the game on this, right, James? Very early.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, absolutely. And I think there's certainly the possibilities to play around with that kind of stuff to even see maybe embedded in here. And something, well, I'm probably going to go play around with it right after this call, is to try to figure out, can I get it to ask me more questions if I prompt it with something. But certainly if well, that's something we want to work towards, for sure. The second part of that question, will there be something like a workflow copilot to help create workflows and actions? That's a great question. I think what we're doing on that front there, less so in NITRO Studio in SharePoint itself, we're more looking at expanding what you can do with the CroCanyon.help site, which has a ton of information, some of it out of date, unfortunately, but it has a ton of info that is a great resource for our users, but a lot of it is pretty hard to find, or it can be hard to just find with a simple search. So more so than creating a workflow in NITRO Studio directly, we would be looking at having a chatbot or again, RAG model AI copilot on our NITRO CroCanyon.help site to help our users get up to speed with NITRO and help them get a better response, to help them maybe configure an action the proper way, or configure with the right syntax, because I know that's the thing that catches people up sometimes, is what is the right syntax for the scenario, and that Copilot on .help should help answer those questions. Now, I don't know if we have anything on the roadmap right now for building a workflow directly in NITRO Studio using a Copilot. But that is an interesting idea, and I think something we'll certainly want to take a look at. All right, any other questions or any other use cases? You want to see if this, either this or the other couple options I mentioned that Microsoft offers for copilots, maybe more specific to that scenario. But anyone have any specific scenarios they want to cover? No, that's okay. All right. Chris or Scott, anything else you want to add?
Well, no, it's just very exciting what we already developed and where this can go. This is going to become more and more essential part of our applications in NITRO Studio, and like expand to different LLMs, and maybe even use what they call LLM routing, where you route requests to different LLMs based on their capabilities and cost. And the other thing is agent swarms, and looking at what Claude 3 is doing with projects and artifacts. And it's changing so fast. Many interesting things coming up. So I think it's a matter of just, we're right in the middle of it, swimming in this, fast moving current. and we'll see what we come up with. You know, we don't even know what it'll be like in 2 or 3 months, because who knows what other capabilities will be out there. But certainly whatever is most important and pertinent for business process automation and helping our customers save money, do job more efficiently, you know, everything good, all the goodness that can come out of it. I realize there's some skepticism to AI. We all know that about, you know, the peak of inflated expectations and all that. But we're really focused on what is of real value, a real practical value to our customers. And hopefully what James showed you today helps. I mean, we do have this implemented. This HR thing is actually implemented at several locations. And we're working on other ones that are quite similar, involving healthcare, construction, education. So this is real stuff, real practical solutions that we're coming up with. And any one of you want to jump on board with us, you know, just try something. Hey, can you do this? Can you do that? We're all ears, and we really want to build things that are attuned to what our customers need and what will make their operations more efficient, or give better service to their users or customers. That's the whole goal of this. You know, cool technology, but how do you use it effectively in real practical situations?
Exactly.
Right, James?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yep. Yeah, good. All right. Well, hopefully you got a little something out of today's workshop. Again, if you have any follow-up questions, certainly let us know. If you have any want to have a one-on-one conversation about how to use AI in your organization, you know, again, we're you know, this is our tool. Obviously, we like this, but there are a lot of different ways you can use AI across an organization, and we're not limited to just offering this one NITRO Studio Copilot. If you need assistance with building out like an you know, a Copilot, something in Copilot Studio, that's something we could help you with. If you you know, just need some guidance on like what is this AI stuff all about, we're happy to have a conversation about that as well. So yeah, so appreciate you all joining today, and I hope you have an excellent rest of your day. I hope you all had a good 4th of July holiday, and we'll be talking to you all again very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Thank you, James.
Thanks, everyone.